And a good day. Welcome. It is Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on EWTN Radio. Hope that you are having a wonderful day today, that your new year is still off to a great start. And Debbie, we promise people some impactful topics here in January and February, and hopefully we have topics every day that are helpful and important to people. But we have one today that I know is going to be, I think people are going to want to pay close attention to, and we ought to get a lot of phone activity on this one today. But first of all, Debbie, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm enjoying this new year. I thought it was going to, it's kind of exciting in a strange sort of way. I thought it was going to be quiet and peaceful, but it's never that way, Jerry. I'm so used to chaos is part of my life, I guess. I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be alive, Jerry. It's good. You know, I'm
grateful for the chaos.
Yeah, I'm still standing. That's a good thing.
All right. Well, today, dear friends, listen, we're going to talk about the impact of absent fathers today. So here's kind of setting the stage for you, and I'll give you the phone number. It's 1-800-585-9396. 800-585-9396. Many of you have heard me talk about on this program how my parents divorced when I was 7. Our father basically abandoned us. He always paid child support and everything, very faithful about that. We'd get a birthday card occasionally, but just was really not a part of our lives. And so I want to hear from anyone. If you grew up without a dad, perhaps he was in and out of your life, maybe you feel like in some way it kept you from becoming the man or woman that you were meant to be. Especially, gentlemen, if it's made it more difficult for you to be a dad to your kids. So we want to talk about these things, how it might have affected your relationship with God. I know that it certainly did for me. 1-800-585-9396 is our number. And we have John Finch joining us here. He is the producer of a documentary that I saw on EWTN Television that it was like I was watching my life unfold right there as I watched it. It's called The Father Effect, and if you haven't seen it, we're going to tell you how you can get a hold of it in the EWTN Religious Catalog. But when John was 11, his father committed suicide, and as a result, the fatherless boy who grew up in government-assisted housing would become a self-described social alcoholic, a traveling salesman with an unlimited account. Johnny, good time, life of the party kind of guy, was always ready to buy a round of drinks. It impacted his own family. He got married, had his own kids, and it was in coming to understand this father wound that he suffered and that many of us suffer that he was able to kind of put the pieces back together, really offer forgiveness to his dad, and now lives a very, very different kind of life. So John Finch, don't want to delay any longer. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me, Jerry. Thanks for having me, Debbie.
Thank you, John. John, can I ask a question? The Father Effect, the powerful documentary that Jerry's talking about, how long did it take you to do that? Because you produced it, I hear, John.
Yes, it took about 5 years, actually. We interviewed over 80 people, and it was quite the journey. I was not a filmmaker when I first began. So I learned the hard way, and I made a lot of mistakes along the way. So, it was about 5 years. So it was a very interesting education, if you will, in filmmaking and in my own life. I learned so much about just myself, and every interview we did, there was something that God was showing me that I could do differently in my family. So it was quite the journey.
Well, again, we invite your phone calls or your texts. You can text EWTN to 55000 and share your take, your comment about this, or call 800-585-9396, talking about the father effect, and it really kind of centers around what many people now call the father wound. Very, very significant thing that happens to really so very many people, and a lot of people go through life struggling in many ways and not really understanding, not tracing it back to what it is that we're talking about here today. And John, I want to hear a snapshot of your story, but first, with your help, would you please explain to our listeners, what it is that we're talking about here? We're not talking about, sometimes there are tragedies that take a father out of a child's life, perhaps death in the military or a tragedy or unfortunate circumstances. And that's really different than what we're talking about here today. What kind of scenario would you say we're talking about here?
So with the father wound, it plays itself out in so many different ways. Maybe it's something a dad did or didn't say. Maybe it's something that a dad did or didn't do. So, for example, maybe it was a dad that was verbally abusive or physically abusive. Maybe it was a dad that never said, "I love you," that never said, "I'm proud of you." It's things like that as young boys and young girls, we need those affirmations as we grow up to know that we have what it takes, to know that we have everything it is, that we have that Father's love, and that there's a comfort and security in that. And so many times, even if it's a dad that passes away early on, obviously it's not by his choice, but it's just something that child never gets by his own father. Now, he can get it from another man. Maybe it's a coach or a mentor or whomever. So, but that's what every boy and girl is looking for. They're looking for that confirmation, that affirmation from their father. So that father wound can come in all types of various forms. As I mentioned, the physical abuse or verbal abuse, or the biggest thing is when we say absent fathers, most people think of physically absent, but there's also the emotionally absent father. There's the guy who lives right there in the home but chooses to do other things rather than spend time with his kids. And so, we can't forget that, because that plays itself out in so many different ways in so many different homes.
John, let me ask you this question. When you were talking about the father effect, is it more important for the father to be emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically present? How does it equate to like where a mother's role is? Is it different? Is it the same? Does a father have a different impact? I'm just curious about that.
Yes, a young boy and young girl look at. I think so many times they know mom loves them because they're mom, and they carried them for 9 months, and there's just this natural idea that, well, mom loves me. But so many times they don't quite get that from dad. They don't quite know that that's there, and so many times as dads, we just kind of go and provide. There's this myth that if we just go provide financially, we're doing our job. But no, there's so much more to that. That there's the being at home, going to the sports events. Those type of things are showing our kids that we care about them and that we love them. It's more than just the words in so many cases too, but it's actually the actions. So it is different in that a dad's affirmation is just something that every child needs. And if he doesn't or she doesn't get that, then, in case with girls, for example, if they're not getting a fatherly love, they're going to go look for it somewhere. And so many times they become promiscuous because they're just they're yearning that father's love. And if they're not getting it at home, they're going to go find it somewhere. And with guys, in my case, for example, it was, I'm going to go get attention. I'm going to do something. And I was, good time Johnny. I'm going to go be wild and crazy and just try to attract all types of attention with drinking and everything else, just to get some type of affirmation from somebody, even if it's just other guys. I was just reaching out and crying out for something.
Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, and our guest is John Finch. He is the producer of the documentary The Father Effect, which is aired at EWTN Television. And if you go to take2show.com, look in the description for today's show, and I have linked to the title of it, The Father Effect. There's a hyperlink there. If you click on that, that'll take you to EWTN Religious Catalog, where you can make a purchase of this very impactful DVD. 1-800-585-9396 is our number. We're talking about the impact of children growing up and growing up without their father, whether it's physically, emotionally, spiritually, what have you. And if this describes you, feel free to join us with your experience, your take on this. Maybe you're a mom who did the very best you could in an unfortunate situation raising your kids. Again, it's 800-585-9396. And John, if you could, this is really going to put you on the spot, but give you about 3 minutes to kind of capsulize your story. I know you do it in much greater detail in the documentary, but this is something that follows a man or a woman into adulthood. You were well into adulthood before you started to kind of say, hey, wait a minute, what's going on? What do I need to kind of fix or repair here in my life? So take our listeners through your own journey in just a couple of 2 or 3 minutes if you can.
Sure. So at the age of 11, my dad committed suicide. And I had no idea how that would impact my life as I moved forward. As a young man in high school and college, just not having that father walk alongside me to show me what it looked like to be a real man, to show me what the good things, the bad things, just to when I fell off the horse, if you will, to help get me back on the horse, and to speak encouragement. And to again, just teach me about life. I wanted to know about girls, about sports, about all kinds of different things. And not having that dad there to do that, I was really just lost. And so I bought into everything that the world says that you need to be as a man. It's the power and the money and the success and the sex and, all of those things as a young man and in high school and college and even as a single man. And it was about 6 years ago that I just came to a place where my life was really falling apart. Had been married for about 18 years and had 3 daughters and was a traveling salesman with an unlimited expense account and was just traveling all over the country and had become a social alcoholic. I was the guy that at home, I was the good Christian man that everybody thought read his Bible every day and went to church every Sunday. And yet when I was on the road, I was a whole different guy. I was going out to bars all by myself, just getting hammered drunk and just medicating this wound that I had, this wound of abandonment. You see, I was very angry at my father for choosing to take his own life. And I was very angry at God for allowing my dad to take his own life. So I had this deep-rooted anger, which I see in so many men specifically, but it's in women too. And it's this anger that I didn't know where it came from until I had been, confronted with this idea of a father wound. And so on that day, about 6 years ago, God had taken me to this place of brokenness that I had never known before. And I had remembered this conversation about the father wound that I had had with a friend of mine just a couple of years earlier. And it was that day that I knew, okay, I've got to look at this father wound because I've got it, and it's impacting every aspect of my life. And so I just began the journey that day. And it was in a session with a counselor that God just showed me. He just said, John, how can you be so bitter, resentful, and angry towards a man who didn't know how to be a father? And I knew my dad grew up without a father, but I didn't truly understand it until that day. And so along that journey, as I began to hear more and more about my dad and ask my mom more questions, just God showed me a compassion for my father. And I come to forgive him for that. And it was in that forgiveness that it just radically changed my life as a man, husband, and father. It opened my eyes to so many different things and to the behavior that I'd had for so many years.
Wow, John, thank you for sharing the beginning parts of your story from your heart. We have so many more things we want to ask you, and I know our listeners do as well. And so if you would like to jump in, please call this number, 1-800-585-9396. John Finch is with us the entire hour here at Take Two. We titled the show Absentee Fathers and the effect of that. And John is the producer of an amazing documentary, The Father Effect. Like Jerry said, you can go to take2show.com and the link is there for the DVD. But we want you to stay with us the entire hour. So we're going to hit the pause button right now. And when we come back, we're going right to the phones because you have, dear listeners, you have some very deep parts of your story that you want to share. And John is here to be with you and walk with you. We're here to listen and learn, but you're going to drive this show. We'll be right back on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie and John Finch, our guest.
The wisdom of Mother Angelica.
Glory to God in the highest heaven, and peace to men who enjoy his favor. Well, they found Jesus. So they hurried away and found him in the manger. Are you looking for Jesus? Are you looking for the anointed one? Are you looking for the one that prophets spoke about? Are you looking for the Savior, or don't you need one? You don't need one, huh? I can tell you, buddy, you need one. Bad. But he's come. He's come in our midst. He's in the Eucharist. You can go to any Catholic church and he's there.
For more information on Mother Angelica, visit Religious Catalog at EWTNRC.com.
Post your intentions on the prayer wall on Jerry and Debbie's website. To get there, just click on the bright yellow J&D logo at take2show.com. Jerry and Debbie personally reply to every prayer intention that's posted. Others will also offer you their prayer support. When there's something important you want prayers for, post it on the prayer wall on Jerry and Debbie's site. Visit take2show.com, click on the J&D logo today.
Listen to EWTN Radio at any time, day or night. Audio on demand brings your favorite programs, recently broadcasted shows, prayers, and devotionals instantly to you for free. For more, visit EWTNapps.com.
I'm Jacob Popchek from the Sunrise Morning Show. Oh, come, let us adore him. Those are the words of the song we sing to celebrate Jesus' incarnation, a phenomenon which in a nutshell means that God became like us because he likes us. We are only able to approach the manger in order to adore the infant Christ because Christ adores each and every one of us, and he shows us by taking on our very humanity.
Hello, this is Archbishop Charles J. Chaput, the Archbishop of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Hello, this is Bill Donahue from the Catholic League.
This is Father John Ricardo wishing you a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holy New Year from all of us at the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
Well, thankfully and not surprisingly, we've got busy phones here. Our guest on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie is John Finch. He is the producer of the documentary The Father Effect. If you haven't seen it, if you're unaware of it, again, go to take2show.com. In the description for today's show, where I mention the documentary and the name, the title, The Father Effect, I just click on that because I've linked it to EWTN Religious Catalog where you can purchase the DVD. But Debbie and I want to get to the phone calls for John right now because you have a lot on your hearts, dear listeners, that you would like to talk about. So appreciate the patience of all of you. We're going to get to each and every one of you, starting with Jose, listening on EWTN Radio, to Guadalupe Radio in Houston. Jose, welcome. You're on Take Two with our guest, John Finch.
Hey, Jerry. How are you? Hey, John.
Doing well, Jose. Thanks for calling.
Hey, Jose.
Hey, thank you for taking my call, and I love your show, Jerry. I listen to you guys all the time.
Oh, bless you.
As I heard the name of this topic, it brought back a lifelong story of mine. Going through the same thing. But I was born in Mexico, and at the age of 4 years old, my mom moved to California, and obviously being that young, I don't remember anything about the little town where I was born. But I remember, this may sound a little ridiculous, but this is kind of the way it happened, that I didn't know what a dad or a father was until I was about 9 years old. And I remember one evening we had open house at school, and my mom had taken us. And I remember that when I was in class looking around, I saw a lot of my friends, and I remember one of my friends catching my attention. I saw him, and, I guess he had two other sisters, and I remember seeing this very tall man and this very attractive, good-looking lady that was with him, and they were all holding hands together, and they seemed so happy. And that kind of stuck to me. And when we were on our way home, I asked my mom, I said, "Mom, who was that big man that was with my friend? And my mom said, I think that was his father. And I said, what's a father? What is that? And she says, in a family, there's always a father, a mother, and the children. And that's when it kind of struck me. And I said, well, where's my father? And she's, being 99 years old at that time, she just said, oh, your father had to go away, but he's going to come back. And for many years, I kept asking her because I wouldn't lose that image, and I'd always say, Mom, when is my father coming back? And I guess it wasn't until I was about 13 years old that my mom finally, told me the whole story. And, she said that he had left and he never came back. And, we're a family of 7, 3 brothers and 4 sisters. And, we're all a year to a year and a half apart. And he abandoned us in Mexico, and we were very, very poor, to the point where a couple of my sisters had gotten really sick, and we're either going to die or something was going to happen. But in Mexico, when a woman leaves her house, she leaves, and she leaves forever, no matter what the circumstances are. And for what I know now, I know that my mom was going through a lot of physical abuse, verbal abuse, and my dad was an alcoholic. And he eventually left, came to the United States, and I guess he started another family, and he never came back. And my mom, out of desperacy, had to call her parents to help her out, and that's how we ended up in California. But I know that what I want to say is that, growing up without a father, it changed my whole life. We lived with my grandparents for many years. My grandfather, God rest his soul, he was an alcoholic himself, and we went through a lot of abuse ourselves, physical abuse, emotional abuse, and my sisters, they were abused by my uncles, and we never knew this. We were so little, and we didn't know this until they got older. They said, they told my mom, and my mom really didn't do anything or couldn't do anything. But, I grew up in the streets, and I got married at a very young age. I was 17. And, you can only imagine that I had nothing to offer my wife at the time. I found myself doing the same thing my father had done to us, just unconsciously. It was just like a domino effect.
Jose, if I can jump in here just for a second, just what you just said right there, I think I would love to have John comment on, because here, John, you've got a case of Jose saying he found himself doing the very things that his father may have done. And is that common, John? Do you find that this can actually perpetuate itself?
Absolutely. There's a generational curse, if you will. And what happens is these things can be passed down through generations and multiple generations until finally, one man finally kind of figures it out and decides, I'm going to break these chains. I'm going to break the cycle. But alcoholism, drug addiction, even just fear, rejection, there's a lot of those things that get passed down through the generations, and it's something, again, until somebody recognizes it, and it sounds like Jose is kind of to that place. He understands or recognizes it, and it's in that point where you're just finally saying, you know what, enough is enough, and I'm not going to let this get carried down to my kids. And that's the most important thing, is to recognize it and see it.
Jose, do us a favor if you would. We've got a lot of callers here to get to, but I would love to carry on a further conversation with you if you'd like. John may as well. I don't want to put John on the spot, but I certainly will. Jose, you can hear we've got to get to a break. If you would email take2, the number 2, at EWTN.com, that will come to me, and I'd be happy to converse with you about this further.
Living the Beatitudes with Father Bjorn.
Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. While purity is an important virtue, a lot of times we can confuse this beatitude for a discussion about sexual morality. To be pure in heart is to be completely focused on and in love with God. God has given us an invitation deep within us to share in His own divine life. But it's important that we choose to focus on Him and respond to that invitation. In a homily on the Mount of Beatitudes in 2000, St. John Paul the Great says that we are called to have an urgent response to choose between life and death. In one of the earliest known Christian documents on morality, the Didache, it says there are two ways, one of life and one of death, and between the two ways is a great difference. God has called us to be focused on Him and His love. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
We are a young and diverse generation, helping those in need and promoting human rights. We care for the environment. We embrace authentic witnesses and dream of a better world. Our passion comes from God, who loves us even when we fall and cheers on our victories. If you sometimes wonder, is there something more? Then come and see at CatholicsComeHome.com.
Podcasting is an easy way to automatically receive your favorite EWTN programs on your mobile device. And it's all at your fingertips. Visit EWTN.com/podcast and enjoy your favorite EWTN shows on your mobile phone right now.
Hello, this is Cardinal Donald Wuerl of the Archdiocese of Washington.
Hello, this is Bishop Michael Sheridan from Colorado Springs.
This is Father John Riccardo wishing you a Merry Christmas from all of us at the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
So honored that you joined us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Our guest today is John Finch. He is the producer of The Father Effect. And today we're talking about the impact of absent fathers. And Jose did such a beautiful job of sharing his story from his heart. And Jerry, I do pray that Jose does get in touch with you. And would you please, when you converse with him, and Jose, if you're listening still, please share with Jerry, because I would be very interested, Jose, and I'm praying for you that the cycle is broken. And today, because you verbalized it so beautifully, today you're doing much better because of that. And so that's what I'm hoping for, Jerry, and I hope you could let me know, because I know our Take Two family will be surrounding Jose and his family with prayers. Okay, Joe, you have been waiting so patiently. You got our Patience Award today from Clearwater, Florida, listening on iHeartRadio. Hi, Joe. Welcome to Take Two with our special guest, John Finch.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, Joe.
Hi. Would you let me to go ahead?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
go right ahead.
Okay. I have a 13-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old son, and I always had a great relationship with them. I thought, I was the type of father that changed diapers and got down on the ground and played with them and, took them to parks, and I was just a very involved father. But I had an alcohol issue. I haven't had a drink in 2 years now, but I was sort of binge drinker. Now, they were largely not directly impacted. I don't want to underestimate the effect on them and their futures and my ability to be a father. But I always assumed, always knew that there was something going on with their mother to where she wasn't providing me the opportunities to be the father that I could be. Now again, I don't want to underestimate the alcohol effect. I know that's huge, on her and the children. But the thing is, I've been sort of a revert for the past 4 years. I try to live the faith devoutly, and again, I haven't had a drink in 2 years. But all of a sudden, just when I feel like the sky's the limit with my spiritual progress and my ability to be the father I always wanted to be, and it could only do it, not fully. The most ironic thing is my kids have sort of completely pulled away from me, and I think that it's because of their mother instilling this sort of hatred and anger and resentment towards me. I understand that to a certain extent, but it seems excessive, and I feel like it's taken hold of my children to have that opinion and attitude towards me. And I was wondering if you guys had any feedback on that.
And John, any comments for Joe?
Joe, I hear from. Are you and your wife divorced?
Yeah, we haven't been together for 9 years.
Okay. Yeah, and I hear from divorced fathers and separated fathers all the time, and I know it gets to be a really crazy situation with mom kind of talking bad about dad and the many things that happen there. It's unfortunate. What I would say is just continue to do the best you can. Obviously, praying through the situation, but continuing to do the best you can to reach out to your kids. It's never too late for forgiveness. We had a man that we talked to in the film, matter of fact, and he was 84 years old and came to find forgiveness for his dad, and talks about, for the first time ever, he went to bed at peace. And so just know that it's never too late to forgive, no matter what the situation is. The kids are real good about forgiving. They just want dad in so many cases, and once they understand the truth and understand that you did the best you could, and yeah, you had some rough spots in your life and did some things you probably shouldn't have done, that we're all human, and that they know and see that you're not perfect, and in that they understand they don't have to be perfect, So I just do the best you can to pray through it, continue to reach out to them, and hopefully you'll get the opportunity to share with them and have that conversation.
Is that some help to you, Joe?
Yeah, I know it always comes down to prayer, and and I do work on that. Obviously, we don't see the results sometimes instantly on that, but I am praying, and I know that they're teenagers, so it's all the perfect storm, perhaps, of them being teenagers and everything that they've heard from their mother and experienced from anything that they can remember from my drinking. And so I know that perhaps in time, they'll from an adult perspective, they'll look at things differently. I just have to, and I do look to Saint Monica and how she prayed for Augustine in hopes that Augustine would come to the faith, and it's because I'm really trying to live this out with my children as well, and I've had just bits of progress, and
Joe. You just hit the nail on the head right there. The thought that came to me, just continuing on what John was saying, I would very, very intentionally pray for your children. And here's the thing: this isn't a matter of beating yourself up. You've made mistakes. You're admitting them, and you want to move on from that. I'm sure you've sought God's forgiveness. I'm sure He has forgiven you. The residual simply remains that there is these dynamics between you and your kids. Maybe, perhaps, as you said, their mother is playing a role in that. That's something that we don't know certainly. But I would just pray for them specifically, that God would heal any wounds that you caused in their lives, whether it was out of your own human weakness or whatever. Again, this isn't a judgment on you, Joe, or beating you up or anything, but just I think there's such good can come out of that, Debbie. Don't you think that if Joe it really laser focuses in on his kids in prayer and says, Father, if there's anything that they are struggling with that I was a part of or maybe responsible for, Father, please move in there and bring healing in those areas.
Absolutely. Intentional prayers for your children, Joe, and to move forward, because you're doing the best you can from this point forward, and you can't keep reflecting back. The thing about it, I shared this with Jerry earlier, and John, maybe you could jump in and share if I'm right or wrong on this, and I'll stand corrected. But sometimes when we reflect so hard on the past, we're not moving forward. We're getting stuck in the past, and it's like a cycle that keeps happening, and there's really not a great forward movement or great strides for healing. So I share that passionately, because in my own life, I know that it's happened to me. John, you went and interviewed all these people. Did you feel that way? Or just sometimes people get so stuck in the past, they can't move forward?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. God is, He is a forgiving, loving God. And, it doesn't matter what we've done, where we've been, the mistakes we've made. He still loves us. and you know, our kids need the same from us. One thing I would recommend, Joe, is possibly writing them a letter. Have you written them a letter at all?
You know, I communicate via text all the time, but, you know, a physical letter, that's something I haven't done that I can do.
I would sit and write individually. I would sit down and write them a letter and just lay it all out. Just lay your heart out and pray through that. Pray that God would give you the words to say that would soften their hearts and that would open their hearts into having a conversation with you. But that's one thing that I see quite a bit, and that might just be that door opener to get you the conversation. Again, just a handwritten letter, not typed up, but just a handwritten letter where they see, wow, you know, Dad literally in this age of computers and texting and everything else, he took the time to sit and handwrite that letter and just pour his heart out, and that may be something that really helps.
Okay.
Joe will be with you in prayer, so feel those prayers. The Take Two family we believe in the power of prayer, Joe. Thank you for calling.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thanks, Joe. You're a good man. You sound like you've really made some good choices, and God blesses good choices like that, Joe, and we're so happy that you joined us here on the program. 1-800-585-9396. The impact of absent fathers could be absent physically, emotionally, spiritually. If this is something that has kind of stayed with you, it was your experience growing up and has been a hindrance to you perhaps in being the dad that you want to be, the husband that you want to be, or maybe the woman that you want to be, feel free to join us. We have John Finch on with us this hour. He is the producer of the documentary The Father Effect that aired on EWTN. The number is 800-585-9396, dealing with this annual cold that I'm working through right now.
You sound like a Hollywood actor, Jerry. It's got that raspy voice.
It's not whiskey and cigars, folks. It's we're going to go next to Paul in Canada, listening to EWTN Radio on Sirius XM 130. Paul, we're glad that you joined us. Welcome. You're on with John Finch.
Hi, how are you today?
Doing well, Paul.
Hi, Paul.
So
how are you?
What is your take on this?
Good. I just want to say that I went through the same thing basically that everybody goes through. With my dad was there, but he was an abuser. He was an abuser dad. Like he abused all my sisters. There was 14 in my family, and he abused all my sisters, like sexually and physically. And same with he beat up on my mom and all the brothers. But I just want to say that without God, you can't get out of it. I met God when I was 20 years old, and that turned me around. Like you were saying, to break the cycle. Well, I did that. I'm not perfect. I got 2 girls of my own right now. They're both adults. And today, sometimes I think that I failed as a father, but I did the best I could. So, and also I wanted to know if how long does it stay with you? I mean, the scar stays with you all the time, or I forgive my dad. He's dead now. He died in prison. But
well, John, what do you?
Not easy.
Yeah, any thoughts for Paul, and especially as far as how long this I guess lingers in someone's life?
You know, it can be a lifelong wound, if you will. I think it plays itself out differently in different people because every man's story is a little different. I had a guy ask me not too long ago. He said, what's the worst of the two? Having a father that's still around that you've been wounded by, or having a father that's passed away that you've been wounded by? And I had to say, it's the guy that's still around, because for me, I had closure with my father. He was passed away. And so for me to forgive him and I truly do believe that I don't think of the wound that much at all anymore. But it's the daily reminder of a dad that's still alive that's wounded you. Those are the ones that are more difficult to kind of get rid of. So it really plays itself out differently with each individual. But it can definitely be a lifelong wound, and the forgiveness piece, that's why that's so important. It's finding that forgiveness, because it's the unforgiveness that really hurts us. Most times the dad doesn't even know he needs to be forgiven. And so it's the forgiveness, the unforgiveness in us that really just tears ourselves apart more than anything else.
If I can tag on to that just for a second here, and Paul, here's where my experience has been, and as I said at the start of the show, like John and like so many others who were listening, I did suffer a very, very deep father wound, and through forgiveness of my father and really of myself and coming to accept myself as a son of God, great healing and peace and even joy has come into my life. Does the wound go away? I would say really probably not. But here's what I liken it to. When we look at, for example, Jesus in the book of Revelation, John looks into heaven and he says, what does he see? He sees a lamb looking as though it had been slain. In other words, Jesus in his glorified, risen, perfected body still bears the scars of what he went through. So where I guess I'm going with this is the scars can still be there. In fact, I've got a big scar on my left arm here from an accident that I had when I was about 18. Scars, wounds, the residual of those things could still be there, but they don't have to dominate us. They don't have to own us. In fact, we can look upon those as things that we, with God's help, have ultimately triumphed over. John, would you say any of that is on the mark?
Absolutely. That's a great analogy. I love that. It's a reminder of overcoming it and God helping you through that. So yeah, that's exactly it. I totally agree.
Paul, does that bring you some peace? And before we let you go, I just want to leave you with one comment. But does that bring you peace, Paul?
Yes, it did. It did. And one more thing I want to say. If anything, I think all the experience I went through made me a better man. A better man that I understand people that go through the same thing now, and I help other people that went through the same thing. Right. But it's hard to, like I was saying, the scar is still there, and sometimes I mess up, and I say, oh, maybe it's because of my past, but then it's not an excuse. I mean, I'm an adult, and I'm responsible for my own actions.
Right. Well, Paul, here's the thing. When you said that, I just know that was Holy Spirit driven, because I actually wrote down while Jerry was speaking to just share with you that so many things of great virtues were born in you out of your suffering, and you just shared it. You just talked about how you have compassion for others that are going through similar things. And I also felt strongly, Paul, that you made the comment about getting your relationship with God. You made an intentional act to break the cycle. And I feel in my humble kind of feeling about this, Paul, I think you're a great dad. You made an intentional desire to make it better, and I think that is beautiful. I just want to say I think your children are very lucky. You're in touch with your emotions. So I don't, John, if you want to echo that, I would love for you to, because I felt strongly.
And Paul, here's what I would say too. I would just encourage you to continue to share your story, because the thing is, so many men out there, especially, have no idea that other men have been through similar situations. And when you're able to share your story, God uses you to help others. And that compassion that you have for others, that's something that God's planted in you. And that's what opens the door for God to use you to help others. And God used you to help others change their lives. So other men need to hear your story to know that there's hope. You know, you've made it through, and you're doing the best you can, and that's the most important thing, especially with men. They need to know that others are going through it, and so many of the times we're just, as men, we don't like to talk about those things, but we need to be talking about them.
Amen. John Finch, our guest on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. And you can join us as well, 1-800-585-9396. The Father Effect is John's documentary that has aired on EWTN Television. Friends, whether you may think, well, I have no need of really learning more about this, but you know someone who does. There's no question about that. Go to take2show.com, and in the show description for today, where I typed in the name of the documentary, The Father Effect, click on that, buy it from the EWTN Religious Catalog. This could be this could be a life and possibly eternity-changing video for someone to watch. Like I said, I thought I was watching my life story when I was viewing it, and as John said, there are a lot of men who really may not even realize that they could use something like this. So we're going to go back to your calls. Roseanne, thank you for calling from Greenville, South Carolina, listening to EWTN on Catholic Radio in South Carolina. Hi, Roseanne. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you for taking the call.
You're welcome.
I have a bit of a complex situation. I'm a very, very worried mother of an 18-year-old girl who is very involved with a 20-year-old young man who has had one terrible issue after the other. He was born to a woman with cerebral palsy and a man who is a terrible alcoholic. And when the young boy my daughter is involved with was 15, at close range, this young boy witnessed this alcoholic father take a gun and shoot the father's girlfriend in the head, killing her. He witnessed this. The father is now incarcerated. Many, many issues have come up for this young man. He doesn't know which way to turn. He lives with his maternal grandparents. My husband and I spend every day looking after my 18-year-old, trying to guide her. We cannot get her out of this relationship, but we also have very, very heavy hearts for this young man. My question is, how does a mom, how does a dad, what should our perspective be? I pray incessantly.
John, did you want to respond?
Yep.
Yeah, I would say, one of the things is I'm a huge advocate of counseling, whether it be through a priest or a counselor or whomever it may be. I would do the very best I could to talk to the young man. I don't know how much influence you have on him. It sounds like you've got some influence in that you're doing the very best you can to do what's right for your daughter and him. And I would just I'd have that conversation with him and see if he'd be open and willing to go to counseling, because, for me, my counselor was my Aaron to Moses. He was my encourager. He was the guy that if I don't know that I would be where I'm at today without him, because he helped me just really go through the journey and ask me questions that I would have never thought to ask myself. And in most cases, priests, counselors, they can really help them walk through that and help them really open up their eyes to a lot of things. And again, even the behavior that I have, this young man sounds like he's got all this very detrimental behavior, and that can bring clarity to that, and that can really help him kind of understand, the path that he's on, and hopefully change it.
Is that some help to you, Roseanne? A good suggestion?
It's a perfect suggestion, and we're all in favor of it. We have to work on getting him into counseling, and of course there's a poverty issue and a financial strain on this young man. He's going to have to figure out a way to agree to do this and to do it in a way he can handle it. My husband has reached out to him financially, educationally. I don't know that it's correct for my husband to pay for this boy's counseling. We're busy paying for our own family's counseling. Mm-hmm. Recently, and this is the last thing I'll add on to this, this boy was a passenger with his best friend. The best friend drank, drove, the car turned over, and the best friend was killed. That was December 11th. I mean, counseling, we can't get him there fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
The issue is, I guess, praying that the Holy Spirit inspires him to say yes and listen to folks who are telling him to do it. We're trying to figure out how to get him in there.
Well, John, like you said, it worked wonders for you, and it sounds like this would be a very good move for this young man, however that is able to come about.
Yeah, I think it's key with this young man. It sounds like it just everything seems to be falling apart in his life, and he's definitely. I'm fearful that something even worse could happen if he doesn't get something figured out pretty quick. So hopefully and prayerfully we can get him into counseling. And you might check, because I know there's various organizations that sometimes will offer free counseling depending on the individual. So if money is the issue, you might find someone that will counsel him for little to no charge.
Roseanne, thank you again so very much. We'll be praying very hard. Everybody, please pray. Surround Roseanne's family, her daughter, and this young man, so that the right outcome comes their way very quickly.
He's been through a lot.
He's been through a lot. He's traumatized, actually. Janet and Sally, we're so sorry. We cannot get to you. We are at the end of the show. That's how fast it goes. And Jerry, I know you wanted to close with John with a few comments before, so our listeners can follow up.
Well, yeah, John, we got about a minute and a half, and I think this would be a huge benefit to all who are listening if you could very quickly summarize, how has your journey going through this, discovering the forgiveness for your fatherhood, discovering who you are as a man, how has that helped you personally and especially your family?
It's radically changed my family, the dynamics and the awareness. It's really about, for me, walking in the daily awareness of my impact as a father. In how I love my wife. My three little girls, what they see as normal, what they're going to expect from a husband, is what they see me doing and how I interact with my wife. That's one of the biggest things I learned in the journey, and so it's things like that are changing my legacy as a dad. And we talk about a lot of those things in the movie, in the film, that we kind of lay out in various ways that dads can do certain things to really understand their impact, and certain things that'll help them change their legacy. So it has been a life changer, and obviously it's my life's mission to continue to get the word out there and to encourage dads.
Yep.
And do everything we can just to love and support dads. I know so many just feel beat down and unworthy, and that's not what this is about. It's about encouraging them, doing everything we can to help them become better
John,
dads.
you hear that music. We hear that music. We've got to close real quickly. How can people find you real quick? How do they find you?
It's thefathereffect.com.
Thefathereffect.com. John Finch, thank you so much. We look forward to the documentary. Another great show by our listeners, Jerry.
Yeah, and again, go to take2show.com, click on the words. There's a link there where it says The Father Effect. That'll take you to where you can buy the video in the EWTN Religious Catalog. So, Debbie, another show coming up tomorrow.
We're excited about it. Until then, have a beautiful and blessed day. Say your prayers for our Take Two family.